Mind Body Life show hosted by Frederick Enteman on Global Voice Radio on Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. During his show, Mind Body Life founder and best-selling author Frederick Enteman investigates the little-known insights and daily methods used to create explosive life transformations and transitions with those that have risen from struggle and ascended to greatness. Here is your Mind Body Life host, Frederick Enteman.
Welcome to episode 18 of the Mind Body Life show. I'm your host, Frederick Enteman. I'm a former professional athlete, a best-selling author of Surviving Sports in the Game of Life, a coach and consultant, and I help athletes create lasting success outside of sports. I help them win the game of life. And today, I'm going to delve into a topic that's absolutely fascinating and continues to, I'm sure, not only boggle the minds of others, but mine as well. I'm going to talk about relationships for the professional athlete, and specifically more or less about romantic relationships. And am I a relationship counselor? No, I certainly am not. But I can tell you, I can share with you, having the combination of being put through the entire life process myself and actually having gone through a marriage, and I'm very open about having gone through a extremely painful divorce, which is also part of the part of why I do what I'm doing now, is helping professional athletes not make those same mistakes. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also learned from them, and also observing others make even more, as well as on top of coaching thousands of clients, whether it's athletes or CEOs or your average Joes or entrepreneurs. And I'm basically a student, or have been a student, of human performance and a passionate observer. I wouldn't be in the field of leadership if not. And I've come up with topics that all have the correlations and behavioral perspectives that most don't even consider when it comes to being an athlete, kind of seeing behind the curtain, so to speak. So first and foremost, with individuals that are so focused and achieve even the highest levels of, kinesthetically, let's just say the athletic abilities draw viewers because it's so amazing. The professional sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry. If you want to say collectively as a whole worldwide, I'm not for certain, but I want to even say, multi-billion. Anyway, why do athletes' relationships, particularly with dating or especially marriage, end up unsuccessful? It's it's oftentimes it's the professional athlete that's highly scrutinized for their relationship disasters. Now, the statistics, if are only overall cumulatively slightly lower than a professional athlete. So why all the noise when it's all already, as a professional athlete, it's one of the most highly scrutinized realms in the entire world? I think it's safe to say it's kind of an all eyes on me scenario, whether you want to get into that or not. In fact, in my last episode, which was about finances, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it's actually divorce that is the top statistic that leads to these financial meltdowns or crises for the pro athlete, and it's a statistic that often leads to bankruptcy. Secondly, it's childcare payments that come in a very close second. a close second. So knowing these two statistics, I'm just baffled why on both sides, why a professional athlete when so young with so much financial backing for the most part would even attempt to go into a relationship when or even someone else would try to get involved. Now that can bring up many other topics, but I think now that I'm a seasoned, mid-aged, mature adult, I just have different viewpoints here as opposed to when I was 20. Obviously, that's going to happen, but looking back, I almost feel like, wow, why did they even attempt it? So with this in mind, I see it two ways. Being educated about relationships and fully comprehensively aware of the full picture of what it takes to lead a successful and meaningful relationship or what kind of communication and resources are necessary. I think this is extremely important. And what 18, 19, 20 to 22-year-old has that kind of awareness or is even interested in taking those steps to develop those skills? When in fact, speaking of statistics, over 65, 70% of professional athletes aren't coming from privileged backgrounds, okay? The raw truth is that a lot of professional athletes are coming from very traumatic backgrounds, and they're just going to copy behaviorally of what they've already been taught. So with this in mind as well, what levels of emotional quotient is required for both parties if you're talking about relationships? What habits and rituals and space and awareness are set into play to ensure an honorable, loving, respectful relationship even blossoms? And how are you going to get on the same page and then not only stay there, but evolve together? It's like your game, okay? If you're an athlete listening to this, and I hope you are, that would make my day. You're constantly developing. You have to treat your relationships the same way. You have to develop your emotional quotient, your communication, and your space, your relationship skills. I mean, yes, there were the upsides. I guess looking at this, I'm going to turn this around into the perspective of, I think, someone going into dating an athlete. So there's upsides of never really having to worry about the finances, right? Or maybe it's living in a beautiful home and driving nice cars. But I think for most, these essentially all become downsides because the novelty, trust me when I say this, the novelty always wears off. I mean, the money, the bling, the shiny little distracting objects can't drive a successful relationship. That's just materialistic emptiness. So I think many girls of teammates that I witnessed, for instance, I knew, looking back, I knew they were absolutely happy with settling down in like a nice house. Now, keep in mind, I was in Europe, okay? I wasn't in the NBA or the NFL or the major leagues. I think it's different. Playing abroad automatically cuts your games in half. but it doesn't change the fact, settling down in a nice house with their professional athlete partner. It seemed like that's all there was, their professional athlete partner. And then I kind of watched these relationships dissipate. And I would always wonder, I wonder why that didn't work out. But, for most of these guys or even gals that are professional athlete, they find their identity in just being a professional athlete. I mean, being on that level, that's mostly all we're focused on, and it's either you're 100% focused or your career suffers. So it's a really, really challenging situation, and there's certainly nothing wrong with chasing your dream and being. I don't want to discourage anyone here. There's nothing wrong with being the best pro athlete in your field. But I guess my point is, what is wrong is when a partner even limits their own identity to dating a professional athlete, because that happens as well. And, I think in your early 20s, I think I've seen a lot of women who dated professional athletes thought they were ready to be taken care of. But in the end, it's kind of like in your formative years, you need to struggle on your own a little bit. You need to eat those ramen noodles or frozen dinners, because you know what? They're cheap. And more importantly, it's going to help an individual pursue their career that they can be proud of as well, not sit back and collect. It's almost impossible to make that work when you live in, you're moving around in a few cities throughout the year, and you're also following your partner around for his job or her job. And compromise is already hard. The skills of having a successful relationship are already challenging, especially in these modern days. And there's always one person that may have to give up a little more than the other. And I say this with all due respect and love. And I think from a professional athlete standpoint, we have to give up and compromise more than anyone else. So oftentimes we come across as selfish, and then our partners or whoever we're dating or with, they just aren't willing to compromise anymore. And so, we're us as professional athletes, we're always putting our aspirations and goals first. And therefore, unfortunately, that may mean never settling down due to the simple volatility of the contracts and the injuries and the business of trading and so on and so forth. Really, there's many, many ups and downs to dating an athlete. I think I can state the obvious of what I've seen mostly create the magnetism, the magnetic draw or pull of an athlete are the one percenters. Even myself, though, playing abroad in Germany and Lithuania, I've been in games we play in front of 10,000, 15, 12. There's fun, there's fame, there's status, and people know who you are, and that's all true. But the uncertainty and the doubt, and then certainly what the lifestyle involved of I call it the road circus, infidelity and cheating are also very true as well. And not to say everyone's part of that, but it is a huge player. And speaking of players, pro athletes are known as players, and that's where that comes from, because these guys are I'll just say, guys, these guys are held to a different standard by the public. In turn, like I already said, there's a huge level of scrutiny. And now something I didn't have to deal with at the time was all the technology, where it's never been quicker to pass news, whether it be false news or true news, quicker. And that creates a lot of pressure. Many act out on that. Thankfully, I didn't have to really experience any of those negative stereotypes that you often see in the news, because those are the people making 10, 20, $30 million a year. But anyway, speaking of which, I think what most want to know is what is so intriguing about an athlete, and that's what draws them. But a lot of people are drawn to professional athletes, like I said, just because the simple lens of scrutiny almost makes you want to get to know them. Why? I've always wanted to know, why would you want to date a pro athlete or even attempt to marry one again when it has the highest divorce rate out of any field in the entire world? I mean, we're talking about higher than Hollywood. What is it about athletes that they struggle with maintaining healthy relationships? It's a conundrum, is this something that can be solved? I mean, pro athlete or not, it's really why I do what I do, and I'm so passionate about what I do. I love working with professional athletes, because at the end of the day, it's a man's character that should stand on its own. And that requires coaching, requires accountability to obtain those skills, and it obtains constant and never-ending improving on one's character. That requires time. It requires focused work and concentration to forge oneself into his or her own. Now, once the touchdowns and the fame and the recognition gets taken away, and at some point it will, what kind of person is left? This is why I do what I do. I love leadership. I love human performance. It can be the one that fits his or her identity in the old glory days, living in the past, or the one that embraces life in the present, being passionate about making a positive impact on the people and society around them. So I kind of came up with with a list that I'm going to go over. It's kind of some things to keep in mind about professional athletes and relationships. And number one is their intensity. Athletes, just in general, can be intense people, and they need to be in order to reach their sometimes superhuman goals. It's this intensity that can turn into other parts of their life as well. If it makes you uncomfortable, or if you want to help them to keep things more compartmentalized, just say so. And they're healthy and want the relationship to work, they'll listen to you. Communication is so important. Professional athletes, are a different breed of people. They are constantly testing themselves to the limit, and they embrace that, and they want to achieve great goals. They're highly driven. They also can ask a lot of the people who are in their lives, just ask if this is the right fit for you. Hold true to your boundaries. Make sure the support of your significant other or sweetheart or whatnot is returned to you, especially by the athlete. And most importantly, not to sound serious in that all professional athletes are like machines, but have fun. in the end, just have fun. You know, what's my best advice for someone dating an athlete? Um, they're competitive and immensely stubborn. Again, it's in our blood. In life, you just will not succeed unless you're competitive in the field of sport. And this is especially true for any athlete, whether you're um, collegiate or amateur, and especially professional, but that part of them, it just doesn't shut off in a relationship, okay? You need to be aware of that. They thrive off of the competition and strong-mindedness. They like challenges. So if you're equally as aggressive, equally as stubborn, I think things will get interesting. And eventually, someone is going to, whether it's unwillingly or not, give in. There must be some compromise. So communication just plays such an important role. Number 2 I have on my list is focus and drive. Moving into that, I briefly discussed it, but kind of delving in here, we want to spend an afternoon with friends, like normal individuals, everyday individuals that want to just kind of wind down and spend an afternoon with friends, or go to the beach, just relax, waste a little time and be, I guess, sloth-like, just unwind, right? Well, a fit athlete may, especially a professional athlete, may need to keep up their routine of eating right and working out. And, it's discouraging when you're not part of that. So don't necessarily give up who you are for them. Okay. This is what I'm talking about, space. So it's very easily to get drawn in and lost when you date an athlete because of this. So instead, let both of you work towards your goals and happiness, and be clear on what that is, be clear on your boundaries, and hopefully that alone will create a healthy, happy relationship together on some level. Because again, athletes are very, very driven. Professional athletes are incredibly driven. Top high school to collegiate, and especially pro athletes, we know what we want, and we also know what it takes to get that to some degree. We're completely goal oriented. Keep in mind, having dedicated the majority of our lives to just a sport, a professional athlete has worked incredibly hard to get where they are, and that needs to be addressed and kept in mind, and they know how to persevere, just because of the dedication, like they know the back of their hands. Okay, so they won't give up that easily and walk away if times get tough. So know that we don't like to fold. Number 3 I have on the list here is what most people don't realize, as cool as being a professional athlete seems, is the fatigue and the exhaustion. It's absolutely exhausting to be at such a high physical level during the sport that a professional athlete participates in. There isn't that initial high after, tennis match or soccer game or ski event or whatever. But then it's time for the body to recharge. And that's an important part of continuing to be a professional athlete. So I want to be clear. Don't make them feel guilty or torn about this. Just understand it's part of the ride when dating an athlete. I know it sounds crazy or nuts, but part of seeing the sacrifices of an athlete actually might make you become his or her number one fan. When you actually see how much sacrifice and dedication that's required, it might actually melt your heart a little bit. And that's, um, I've seen that a lot as well. But with school or practice and other extracurriculars or whatnot, that's also the meetings and there might be speaking events. There's so many other factors that where an athlete's life is pretty hectic. Okay, there's a very little downtime. So if you're the partner, be there for them when things get stressful. Wish them luck before the games or in college. Looking back, it would have been nice to have some support for exams or tests or quizzes and all that extra stuff that just piles up on top of an already stressful life after committing to being an athlete. It is not easy. So never let them forget how proud you are of their accomplishments, and always encourage them to do their best. Really, I think it's the support that is huge that would lead to a very successful relationship. If you want to really date an athlete, but also know when you need to step back and give them space. So don't baby them, just be there for them. Like, in return, they should be there for you. I think people think it's going to be fun to date an athlete. It might sound like fun, and it might very well be, but it's also incredibly difficult with the schedules, okay? So just know and realize that you'll both have to make sacrifices, and like any couple, you'll have more than a fair share of ups and downs, but never really give up, because some relationships I think are just worth fighting for, right? I have seen some successful relationships that are still going on, and it does happen. It just takes a lot of effort and understanding, and again, communication. So next on my list is recognition. Regardless of how little or well known your date is or your partner is, they'll receive acknowledgement from fans and critics and all the alike. You're also going to be in the spotlight, so depending on what level, take it in your stride and know what's truly important. Don't ever lose sight of why you're in it. And if the girls are batting their lashes at your trustworthy dude or partner, feel complimented. Feel complimented that you're the one he's with. The critics are yelling at him, or if you walk down the street about the play he missed last week or a mistake he made, just things, there's always going to be haters and critics. Okay. So have compassion, feel sorry for the person yelling or thinking that this essentially is the most important thing in their life right now. Just, keep the mouth shut, and just keep walking. Well, just walk away from those people. Also keep in mind, jealousy might be a factor. It's a normal emotion, but awareness is really what is important. So be aware if jealousy surfaces, and believe me, it's inevitable. As much as you'd like to believe you won't get jealous over other girls or boys, or again, girls or boys who give him attention or her attention, you most likely will. Okay, of course, this can again really be said about any relationship, but particularly with athletes, it's like it's like a rock and roll band. for some people. And so it pretty much comes with the territory. You need to have that awareness going in. So you're just going to need to trust on some level that they're going to make the right decisions and understand certainly where you're coming from. If you are ever jealous, certainly communicate that. But also, at the end of the day, remember, trust is a two-way street, okay? And it always will be. I think it goes without saying a huge part. This is the next topic, is the workout routine is so big. Most professional athletes are physical specimens for a reason. And an athlete's workout routine is actually a job all in itself. A lot of time and energy is the other half, not only playing your sport, but the physical component. Whether the athlete's a weekend warrior, or just looking at what type of professional career, prepping the body for the challenges to come, or even in season when just trying to maintain. In the end, we're just all trying to avoid injury. So it's a huge deal, just again, the physical component. If you're the partner, make sure you're supporting this routine, no matter how intense the schedule may seem in your eyes. This is a huge piece of the puzzle. And after all, would you want them to question your habits and reaching your goals? So always keep in mind, if you're dating a professional athlete, they're always going to have to be managing their bodies, working out. It's part of being a professional athlete. That kind of leading into that is recovery. So the next thing I would say is, a lot of people don't understand the sleep schedule. Before thinking even booking the two of you for like a late night party or concert, you need to check in. If it's close to the week of a marathon and your partner's going running, or maybe the big football game, they may decline. He or she may decline. Just have that awareness. You might want to have some fun, but just as you'd want him or her to support what's important to you, just try to be reciprocal and do the same for them. I think a huge part of also is more in-depth than people realize is an athlete's diet. A professional athlete diet is insane. So when you're dating a professional athlete or trying to understand why they're eating so much, instead of, him calling up to ask you out for a burger or pizza, we might very much ask you out for a protein fix, the local chicken wing joint or barbecue place, seriously, or even the local smoothie place or juice place, whatever. Depending on how serious they are about their sport, sugar might be a no-no, so don't make them your favorite cookies or want to get ice cream and just all of that unhealthy stuff. Instead, why not have a healthy recipe date or something like that? I mean, who knows? Their diet might make you actually rethink yours as well. And you just need to realize athletes are always hungry. All that energy expenditure, it requires, fueling the tank. It's not an exaggeration. Trust me when I say that you'll never have any leftover food while dating a professional athlete. Seriously, when you go out to eat, And looking back, I mean, probably within an hour, I was hungry and wanted to eat again. And I know this is common. It's might seem like a tapeworm, but if your fridge is stocked, just know that he's going to be the first one in there and clean it out. It's not his fault. It's athletes just need more food to fuel their bodies. And in fact, there might be times when you'll need to sacrifice that last slice of pizza or those fries, and just because you know he needs it more. Just kind of be that support. It's really incredible how much we eat. There's never going to be a moment during your relationship when the athlete's not eating, okay, or thinking of eating, or thinking of eating. And I always thought it'd be great to kind of have a chef during season that kind of makes the food. Honestly, a professional athlete will probably consume about 5 or 6, whether they're meals or snacks or intakes of food per day. So just be aware of that. That's pretty much it for this episode. I just wanted to shine a little light on kind of, again, the life of a professional athlete or elite athlete, and some dynamics, things to consider if you've always wanted to date an athlete, or if you're an athlete wondering why your relationships don't really work out or become stale or whatnot. Hey, I hope this helps you. If you know an athlete, I hope you can forward this and share this show with them. Again, my name is Frederick Intaman, and it is my passion and purpose to help athletes win the game of life. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. If you want to get a hold of me professionally, that would be fine. So until the next episode, I hope you take care of yourself and have a great day.
Thank you for joining us. Listen every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern to Frederick Intaman host Mind, Body, Life. Connect with Frederick at www.globalvoiceradio.com. Tune in next week for another edition of Mind, Body, Life on Global Voice Radio.